What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss the fourth stimulus check update, the stimulus package update, daily news, pretty much everything you need to know about on a daily basis. What's going on in our country, Washington, D.C., money, investing, the stock market. Remember that new videos come out here on our channel every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you find these videos helpful, don't forget to hit the like button for us down below. Things are literally changing by the hour here. As you can see the headline here, progressives win again, as this headline from last night. No infrastructure vote last night, as the progressive Democrats won as they were trying to vote on the physical infrastructure vote last night. And that would have been maybe bad news for the stimulus package. And the progressive Democrats, Bernie Sanders, Pramila Jayapal, and the progressive Democrats delayed the physical infrastructure vote last night, which is probably good news for the stimulus package. You can see here House Democratic leaders abandoned a third attempt on Thursday night to clear a Senate-passed bipartisan infrastructure bill, the physical infrastructure bill, as progressives held firmly opposed without deeper assurances that a larger package of social benefits, the stimulus package, is a slam dunk. The third punt in a month came after President Biden made a rare visit to the Capitol to beseech House Democrats to help him advance his agenda as a matter of demonstrating that American democracy can still function. The visit was hailed by lawmakers of all stripes, but it did little to convince the liberals to vote immediately on the physical infrastructure bill. And the delay has sparked a new round of finger pointing from lawmakers already frustrated with months-long impasse and Biden's sinking approval numbers. Democratic lawmaker Alan Lowenthal says it's not good optics, it's terrible optics, who wanted the House to pass the physical infrastructure bill on Thursday. Jim Costa, Democrat from California, says people are frustrated right now, a moderate blue dog Democrat. There's a lack of trust, and you got a lot of members here that have been here for 4 years or less, and they don't seem to understand how you get things done. However, a lot of this trust is basically because of Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, who are delaying the stimulus package, and a lot of progressive Democrats don't trust Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema. As Democratic Representative Steve Cohen from Tennessee says right here, quote, basically it's the distrust of Manchin and Sinema, quote, that's the problem. Here is Democratic Representative Cori Bush, who has something very interesting to say about the stimulus package. Check this out.
Cori Bush from Missouri. She is a member of the Progressive Caucus and a frequent guest and friend of the show. So I don't know if you were able to hear Susan Rice, Representative Bush, but I want to get your take because it feels like the progressives won today in that progressives held the line and said we are not going to vote for the infrastructure bill if we don't have the assurances that the Build Back Better bill is going to also pass, that they're going to stay linked and stay together. In the end, were you prepared to vote against the infrastructure bill if it came to the floor?
Absolutely. And I made that very clear before I walked in the meeting this morning, the very first meeting where President Biden was there in that meeting. I walked in saying that I knew that if we didn't have both bills going together, that I would be a no, that would not change. And I want to see a Senate vote. I came out the same way that I went in, and I still stand firm, flat-footed right now, saying that if the infrastructure bill came to the floor, I would be an absolute no on it if it is not together with the Build Back Better Act. And the reason is, some have said, well, what about all the great things that are in it? And what I'm saying is we have to help the greatest number of people the quickest. And the way to do that is while we have the House, the Senate, and the White House, we need to make sure we get that done. And if we say that we're good with just helping some people when we know we can help more people, then that's an error on us. Our title is representative, so represent all the people.
Let me play for you what Senator Sanders said earlier today very quickly about that House vote that never ended up materializing. Here he is.
I think before there is a vote in the House on the infrastructure bill, the members of the House have a right to know that 50 U.S. senators are supporting a strong reconciliation bill.
He said 50 U.S. senators. That means Manchin and Sinema have to agree to the more than just a framework, my assumption is, to a bill. There's text of the bill out now. Do you trust Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to not double-cross the Progressive Caucus on Build Back Better?
No, and I don't owe them my trust, and they don't owe me theirs. What moves me and what moves the people actually is the vote. So give us the vote. Let us see the vote. That's how we know where you stand, is by the vote. Now, if they want to get up and give a big press conference and say that, hey, we've looked at the text and we agree with the text, we're having this press conference to make sure that it's on the record, and we're just waiting for Senator Schumer to pass it, to the floor, get it to the floor, then okay, that's different. We could start a different conversation there. That's all I can say on that. But for me, it's not about trusting two people. It's about thinking about every single person in St. Louis that has reached out saying that, you know what, that $300, that child tax credit, how much that changed my household. It's thinking about when I was a teacher, when I worked in childcare for 10 years, and at one point I was a 3- and 4-year-old teacher, and I remember when I became the administrator, I would have to turn away parents saying, you know what, it's Monday morning, and if you don't have your full tuition, your child can't stay for the week. And so they would have to take off work if they did have the money to pay so that they could go to work. We are cutting that, and I will not think about and what we're talking about, if we're only talking about the bipartisan infrastructure package, we're going to make sure that we set up white men. We're going to make sure we set up white men. Will some people of color get help? Yeah. But we're basically setting up white men, but we're leaving out immigrants, black women, brown women, our Native community. We're leaving out so many others that are part of that other human infrastructure piece. And I won't do it. I won't do it because I felt like that's what happened to me before. I felt like when I was sleeping on the street, when I was on Medicaid and WIC and I had food stamps, I felt like who's been paying attention? When you give me a little and think that I'm supposed to bow down and get on my knees and thank you for it, and instead of making sure that I had what I needed to sustain, and so I will not be that person that steps up and agrees with that. I'm going to make sure that each and every person in my community is able to live a decent quality of life if I have anything to do with it. And until that happens, I'm standing strong.
Wow, that's Democratic Representative Cori Bush. You may or may not agree with her, depending on your political stance, but I really got to commend her for standing up for her beliefs and really pushing strong, holding strong for. You heard her personal story there and relating to her personal past and moving up from being a teacher, starting off as a regular teacher, going up through an administrator, now being a congresswoman. Really a really touching story there. And, now looking back and trying to look back for her people in her state and really the, entire country, trying to provide. And she's one of the people that is really pushing hard to put, and you heard her say that we need to provide for as many people, the regular people, as possible in this stimulus package. In fact, she's notable because check this out. If you remember the story, here's a story back from August 2nd. And again, you may or may not agree with this, depending on your political stance, but she slept on the Capitol steps when the eviction moratorium was expiring from the first time. She's a congresswoman. She literally slept on the Capitol steps, the U.S. Capitol, for several days, and in protest to basically try to get President Biden to extend this. And Biden did. This is when he extended it the second time around. And they extended the eviction moratorium for literally millions and millions of people, to literally prevent millions of people from being thrown out of their homes. So, and she basically said, hey, if millions of people are going to be thrown out of their homes, I'm going to do what is going to happen to them. And she slept down on the Capitol steps. And again, I really commend her because she literally took to the streets and what she believes in and kind of, this is, and again, you may or may not have a different political belief. And I try to take a middle line stance there because again, I could argue kind of either point, for or against the eviction moratorium in this particular case. But I really got to commend her for taking to her beliefs, and she's really advocating for the average everyday person, trying to get a lot more stimulus items included in this stimulus package right now for the average everyday person. She's kind of a Bernie Sanders for the House of Representatives. Bernie Sanders is, of course, from the Senate. He's a progressive Democrat in the Senate. She's a progressive Democrat in the House, kind of the opposite of a Joe Manchin or a Kirsten Sinema. Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are kind of against raising taxes on billionaires. In fact, here's a you kind of think about how she's listening to the people. Cori Bush. Here's a clip from Kirsten Sinema. Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema getting a lot of flack for not listening to their constituents, listening to their people. Here's a clip from Senator Kirsten Sinema, moderate Democrat, who's been a holdout for not really wanting to agree from a lot of these items for the regular everyday people. Listen to this clip from Senator Kirsten about Kirsten Sinema and one of her constituents from her own state just trying to talk to her about the stimulus package. Check this out.
I'm from Tucson, Arizona.
I think it's
and I'm wondering,
quite interesting.
I know you've met with dozens of lobbyists. I did not touch you. I'm meeting with dozens. I know you're meeting with dozens of lobbyists.
The world doesn't really
and
work
talking with
anymore.
corporate donors about the package. How many times will you meet with constituents?
Well,
How many times have you met with constituents when negotiating bills back better?
I think it's part of the course, right? Part of the
So I
course.
want you to meet with my family who are
interesting.
constituents of yours. I can have them meet you next week.
Well,
Every single year in Arizona, it's getting hotter and hotter. We're breaking records.
Integrity.
There's either no monsoons or it's the longest season. People are suffering. Your constituents are suffering. What are you going to do about climate change? Next week in Glasgow could be the last chance. Please answer me, Senator. My family, my house, we're from Tucson. We're constituents.
So there's Senator Kirsten Sinema just completely ignoring one of her constituents, somebody from her own state, literally just trying to talk to her about the stimulus package, the American Families Plan that has climate change in it. It's one of the big parts of the package, saying, hey, I'm from your state. Can we just talk about it? She says, hey, you talk to corporate lobbyists every day or all the time. When are you going to talk to your own constituents, the people that elected you? She just completely ignores her. Now, I don't support Joe Manchin very often if you watch this show. And again, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat. But Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema are getting a lot of criticism, including from me. I will give Joe Manchin a little bit of non-criticism, at least when he was confronted by the kayaktivists, the activists that were on kayaks, and they went up to his yacht or his houseboat. At least he talked to him. He literally just talked to him and answered their questions. And that's, if I was a senator or if I was a representative, I've had a lot, literally thousands of comments of people saying, Jimmy, you should run for Congress or you should run for president. I don't think I ever would, because it's just, you just have way too many haters. Like if you run as a Democrat, you just have so many, all the Republicans hate you. If you run as a Republican, you have all the Democrats that just hate you. Like think about Biden. Biden comes into presidency and literally tens of millions of Republicans hate him. You come in, if you were a Republican president, literally tens of millions of Democrats hate you. It's just such a hated position, right? Nobody loves congressmen or congresswomen, right? I don't know if I'd want to be a congressman. But at least Joe Manchin answered their questions. At least he took their question. Now, of course, he was on a $700,000 yacht, right? And, I'm not going to go there, right? Not that I could say much there, but at least he answered their questions, right? If you're a senator or a congressman from whatever state you're from, you're supposed to be for the people, right? At least Joe Manchin, when you hear him, he's always talking about, people from West Virginia, coal plants from West Virginia, jobs from West Virginia. At least he puts on a good show that he cares about people from his own state. Kirsten Sinema just literally ignores her own people from her own state. Literally doesn't even care, just flat out ignores them and just walks away. Could you believe that? Like, if I was a representative or a senator, at least I would be like, listen, I'm in a hurry. I'm catching a plane or something, but let me address your question at least for a moment here. Climate change, et cetera, et cetera. At least address their question for a moment, right? Just flat out just ignores them. Crazy, absolute crazy. I'd be surprised if Kirsten Sinema gets reelected, but you can let me know your thoughts. Meanwhile, the House had to vote last night to extend the highway funding bill because they didn't vote on the physical infrastructure bill. They voted to extend the highway funding bill because this is going to run out at the end of the month. So instead, they voted to extend the highway funding bill. And ironically, they extended it till December 3rd, which, if you know what December 3rd is, let me know what you know what December 3rd is, because that's a very big date coming up. December 3rd is the date that the debt limit is going to expire, and the country is literally going to fall apart. The Treasury is going to run out of money again, well, for the first time, but we narrowly missed it. And if we don't pass this stimulus package, remember the Republicans said this time around they're not going to help pass it because Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, after Mitch McConnell, helped them pass the last one by the narrowest votes, by one extra vote. With only 4 days left to spare, we averted the first ever country default, different than a government shutdown, a default. Literally, the country would have ran out of money because we have to pass this government debt limit extension. Literally, the right to print money. We can't print money without this debt limit extension. We're going to have to do that again by December 3rd, which is actually an estimated date, but that's the date that we all have in mind. And the Democrats are going to have to do that in this stimulus package, which Nancy Pelosi hasn't even confirmed that they're actually going to do in this package. She said she'd rather do it with the Republicans, which the Republicans emphatically deny that they're going to help with. Nancy Pelosi hasn't even confirmed that they're going to do that. And Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema aren't even on board with this stimulus package. And things are literally changing by the day. So they extended the highway transportation bill to December 3rd because they're assuming that they're going to pass the infrastructure bill by December 3rd, assuming they can pass the stimulus package and the infrastructure package before then. Now, it's also a good thing that we have representatives like Cori Bush and Bernie Sanders pushing for more things for the people. Hopefully that will materialize into stimulus checks for adults, like adult stimulus checks for like $1,400, maybe stimulus checks for adults, because that would be in addition to the stimulus checks for children. Remember that in this framework, this kind of been expected. We've kind of had this for a while, or at least the thought of, that there would be a 1-year extension for the child tax credit. Those monthly stimulus checks or those monthly checks extended for 1 more year, called the child tax credits, those $250 to $300. So they are going to be extending that for 1 more year. As of right now, remember, things are changing by the moment. The current plan is to not give in to Joe Manchin's demands to have that income threshold of $60,000 for a family. That would be for 2 people, so only $30,000 each for a mother and a father, as an example. Joe Manchin wanted to do that, but the Democrats are just kind of ignoring that, as well as ignoring the work requirement that Joe Manchin wants to do. So, yeah. Lawmakers are also discussing a potential compromise to revive the drug pricing measure, the prescription drug, lowering prescription drug pricing which Joe Manchin's not on board for that either. And this would be a big stimulus item to lower the cost of prescription drug pricing and to get that back in the bill. Senator Bernie Sanders is one of the progressive Democrats that really wants to get this in the bill. And this is one of the stimulus measures. It's not a stimulus check per se, but it is kind of, because if you pay for prescription drugs, you would pay less. So imagine paying an extra $25 a month less or $50 a month less or whatever it ends up being, depends on how much you pay. I mean, literally, I've seen so many comments of people say they pay hundreds of dollars a month for prescription drugs. Imagine if you paid half of that or whatever it might end up being. You could literally save $100 a month. That'd be $1,200 a year. That'd be like a $1,200 a year stimulus check every single year. So saving prescription drug prices would be a huge stimulus item, stimulus program, whatever you want to call it. And they say that 66%, 2/3 of adults are or do take prescription drugs. So it'd be a huge stimulus item for millions and millions of Americans, and they're trying to still get that in this bill. You can see here, Democratic lawmakers are discussing a possible compromise on lowering prescription drug prices that could revive the issue after it was left out of President Biden's social spending framework, sources say. Representative Scott Peters, a Democrat from California, who had raised objections to previous versions of the prescription drug pricing measure, and House Energy Commerce Committee Chairman Frank Pallone Jr. have made progress towards an agreement on a compromise drug pricing measure, according to Democratic aid lobbyists. So these are two guys that were previously against it, are now potentially for it. So that is a huge compromise. And if there were guys that were previously against it, maybe even Joe Manchin could be for it too. Speaker Nancy Pelosi is helping build support for the potential compromise, which was first reported by Stat. The Senate remains a question, particularly Senator Kirsten Sinema, my eyes are rolling, who has been on one of the main obstacles in the chamber to stronger versions of the prescription drug pricing plan. A spokesperson for Peters cautioned that he will need to sign off on all 50 Democratic senators. Quote, Representative Peters will require the support of 50 senators before committing to any agreement. That has not yet been achieved. He remains committed to working in good faith with all of his colleagues in both chambers to pass a bill that will lower prescription drug prices for seniors. The outline of the potential agreement are significantly scaled back from what many Democrats and advocates hope for, but it's a lot better from having nothing, for sure. The potential deal would allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices, but only for a more limited number of drugs than originally proposed. Namely, the proposal would only allow negotiation on older prescription drugs that are no longer on their period of, quote, exclusivity when they are protected from competition. The proposal would apply to prescription drugs in both Medicare Part B, administered in doctor's offices, and Part D, given at the pharmacy counter. It would also limit prescription drug price increases to the rate of inflation, a restriction that would apply to people with private insurances as well. That's really good, actually. And cap out-of-pocket costs for seniors, which is also really, really good. On Thursday evening, he sounded a somewhat more optimistic note saying, quote, we're going to get a bill that has negotiated prices. And that's going to make a difference in terms of people being able to afford their prescription drugs. So honestly, that's really, really good news, which is significantly different than even just hours ago today when the framework didn't have prescription drug pricing in there at all. So as I said, things are literally changing by the hour, and this could mean lower prices for at least some prescription drugs for millions and millions and millions of people. And if anything, this could mean a step in the right direction going further, because again, we may not get everything right now, but it might be a couple bites at the apple, which might mean down the line they might get the rest. So some of these things are hard things to get, but they say, what's my wife's father, my father-in-law, my wife's father, he's got a famous saying that says, when there's an elephant in the room, you take one bite at a time. So yeah, this might be a way to get our foot in the door, get some lower prescription drug prices, and then maybe in one of the next upcoming bills, we get more. So I really hope that they get this stimulus type item in there, lower prescription drug prices for millions of Americans. So I will keep you up to date here. Lots of different stimulus items in here. You can see that lots of different people fighting for different stimulus programs, stimulus items, maybe a stimulus checks in there for adults, the stimulus checks for children, different stimulus programs in here. Lots of different things going on here. Things are literally changing by the hour. So I will keep you up to date. Remember that new videos come out here on our channel every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't yet. It's completely free to do so. Literally just click subscribe. That's all you need to do if you haven't done so yet. You can also click share down below and share this video with your friends and family so that they know what is going on, and your friends can or family can subscribe if they haven't yet, and I will keep everybody up to date. You can click here to watch my newest stimulus check video next. And this video is how there's two different big bill proposals to raise the Social Security benefits here in the near future. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next video.